When you look at last year, were you feeling frustrated maybe due to job security? Or you were just saying to yourself, by now you thought you would have been more ahead financially? Or were you on another spectrum? You didn't spend too much, you saved a lot of money, and you were way ahead than where you thought you would be. Now, no matter which group you're in for 2021, you definitely want an even better head start than last year. So if you're committed to have a better financial game plan, then keep watching this video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where it's the best place to learn about Canadian finance. Now you notice my intro changes slightly. This is thanks to a suggestion from one of my subscribers, so thank you so much for making that recommendation. I really liked it. Now in this video, I'm going to lay down a general game plan that everybody should think about when we head into 2021. And I'm going to break it into 3 different parts: saving money, spending money, and growing money. Hopefully these tips can help you have a better sense and be more conscious for this year financially. So at the end of this year, all of you can look back and feel like you had one of the best financial years in your life. Now without further ado, let's jump into the video. So part 1 is about saving money. Now I've actually talked about this concept before on how you should allocate your money. If you haven't watched it already, you can check out the video right here. But if you don't want to follow such a detailed plan listed in the video, at least you should follow a 50-30-20 rule where 50% of your paycheck is used to pay for things that you have to pay or there will be dire consequences. These are things like credit card, grocery, utility, mortgage, etc. And the next 30% of your paycheck should go towards your own enjoyment and entertainment. These are things like shopping, dining, or getting takeout right now, and learning hobbies. And that last 20% should go towards saving and doing something for yourself in the future. Now, there's a lot more simple being said than done. So my second tip is actually to allocate your savings automatically every month. So here I recommend you use banks that allow you to create multiple sub-saving accounts and also let you name them. And they should be able to let you do automatic withdrawal and deduction. And I would set it one day right after your paycheck. So if you always get paid on 15th and maybe 28th of the month, then you want to have your automatic deduction on 16th and 29th. Because when the money is out of sight, it's out of mind, and you have a lot less tendency to spend that money. So on the chart, this is a system that my wife actually uses for herself. She has all these sub-accounts that she named for different purpose. And then every paycheck she gets, it's automatically allocated to the corresponding accounts, and she will only spend what is left over. So she rarely goes over budget with her spending. Now, some of you might be in a more difficult situation and you might be looking at this and say, hey, there's no way I can follow the 50-30-20 rule. So that brings me to my third tip, is to have small incremental improvements. I do understand not everyone can follow this kind of allocation right away, but it's also very important you don't give up right on the spot and just say, okay, I'm not going to save because it's impossible at this moment. So if you save nothing right now, you can tell yourself, okay, next week I'm going to put away $25 every week. And if that's too hard, lower it down to $10 a week. And if that's even too hard, or maybe just $1 a week. Now you're going to say, how's that going to help with my retirement if I'm just saving $1 a week? But the key is not about the actual amount you save. The key is about the habit you just develop for yourself. Usually 90 days period. After that, it becomes muscle memory and you will start automatically have the desire to put away something systematically. And you combine with the other tips, you can really automatically allocate all your money automatically every paycheck, and you will feel more and more comfortable to do so. Now, last tip for saving more money is to actually make it difficult to shop. With technology nowadays and how much ads we're being bombarded every second, it's really easy for us to spend and spend compulsively. And websites like Amazon, who offers one-click purchase, definitely do not help us with our compulsive buying behavior. So myself included, sometimes I find myself racking up a lot of small expenses because, oh, here's $5, I can just click and buy. Here's $10, I can just click and buy. And at the end of the month, I was shocked at how much I spent because I was in the moment and one-click purchase made it so easy. So what you can do is make it difficult, for example, by removing your credit card info or implementing multiple steps. So you're going to go through some loops and hoops before you can actually make the purchase. And also you can implement a cool-off period for yourself for a fixed amount. So for example, if you're going to make a purchase that's over $50, then you will implement a system where you have a 24 or 48 hours cool-off period. You're going to put it in a cart, but you're not going to pay for it. You're going to wait 24 to 48 hours, and if after you still want it, then you can pay for it. Usually for myself, after 24 hours, when I'm no longer in the moment, I've lost interest and I realized I don't actually need to buy this thing anymore. And that ended up saving me a lot of money. These are the quick tips you should look to implement right now at the start of 2021. Now moving on, let's talk about paying money. And we want to pay money smarter. So here I'm going to focus on debt. Now, if you haven't already, in my previous video right here, I've talked about how to handle your debt and using something called like the pool system. But essentially, just to summarize, first you need to understand and realize out of all the debt and loans you have, you need to separate them into 3 categories: good debt, bad debt, and toxic debts. So first of all, what is a good debt? If today this debt can either help you reduce tax because the interest you're paying is tax deductible, or by holding it, you can generate a much higher return than the interest you're paying, or if it does both, which is the best, then it's a good debt. So example of a good debt is investment loan, which is both growing and also tax deductible for the interest, or government student loan, or RSP loan, which you can't write off the interest because it's an RSP, but you can grow it at a faster rate than the interest you're paying into this loan. All these are examples of good debts. Now for bad debt, these are debts that do not do either that I just mentioned, but they charge you a lower interest rate, which is generally 5% or lower. So these are things like personal line of credit that you have borrowed but it's not for investment purpose, or a car loan, etc. Now finally, you will have the toxic debt. These are things that doesn't help you grow or write off interest, and it has a high interest rate, generally over 5%, which the most infamous one is credit card, which charge you anywhere from 19 to 25%. Now, once you separate them into 3 categories, then what you want to do is prioritize them by using something called HDC, which is handle your toxic debt, delay paying back the good debt, and consider what to do with the rest of the bad debts. Now, before I go on, one thing that people always ask is, what about a mortgage on a principal home? Is that good debt or bad debt or toxic debt? Actually, a mortgage on a principal home is somewhere between a good and a bad debt, because you can't write off the interest on mortgage on your principal home unless you use some strategy to play around with the debt structure, which I've talked about in my previous videos. Generally, if you're able to grow it at a better rate than your mortgage, then you should grow it on the side and just pay minimum into your mortgage. Now, but the thing I want to focus on is toxic debt. If you have any toxic debt that you want to get rid of 2021, there are a couple steps that you can take to handle this. Now, the first step is to go ask for a consolidation loan with the bank you bank with, or community bank like Fancity. So the idea is to group all the toxic debt with high interest rate into one big loan with a much lower interest rate, and that way you can pay less into interest and pay off this big new consolidated loan a lot faster. No matter if you can do a consolidation loan or not, the second step would be to actually handle this debt by using one of the 2 ways. The first way is a debt avalanche, which is something I talked about in my previous video already, but essentially what you want to do is pick the loan with the highest interest, no matter what the amount is, the highest interest rate, and work on paying that off as quick as possible by putting all the money into this loan as soon as possible. Now, this is a smarter but a harder way of handling your debt. The second way is use something called debt snowball. And this is to pick the toxic debt with the lowest loan amount and pay that off first. So let's say you have a very expensive personal line of credit, but you only borrow $400 from it. Then that would be the one you pay down first, even if the interest rate is not as high as your credit card loan. This way is a lot more motivating. It feels like you're actually making progress, even though mathematically it may not be the best way. So if you're someone who is struggling to pay off your debt because of motivation and discipline issues, then debt snowball would work a lot better for you than debt avalanche. Now, the third step is actually to seek for help. No matter how much debt you have, if you have any debt issue to start with, you should already be seeking for help, either with a bank or financial advisor, to work some numbers out and work a plan out. But sometimes debt can build up to an amount where it's just impossible to pay back. Just the interest alone is going to cost you most of your paycheck. Generally speaking, if your debt interest payment exceeds 50% of your gross income and there's no consolidation loan, then I think it's time to seek for serious professional help and make drastic change to your debt structure. And this may mean you need to consider something like a consumer proposal. Now, consumer proposal is not bankruptcy. It's basically working with a licensed professional that come out with a proposal with all your lenders to promise to pay back a certain percentage of the total debt, and then they will work with you with a structured payment. This will take a lot longer to apply and go through than a bankruptcy, but you do have the chance to improve your situation if you make more money in the future and you can pay off all these consumer proposed debt earlier. But the point is, no matter what your debt amount is, please don't be afraid to ask for help. A lot of people have this false conception that, hey, debt is bad, it's embarrassing, it's a signal that I don't know what to do with my money. But the truth is, the subject of money was never taught much in school. So a lot of people actually don't have the knowledge and don't know what kind of damage they're causing themselves before it's too late. So a lot of times it's more about lack of education than, you really being irresponsible or something. So don't be afraid to ask for help or even consider the extreme options. It might be much better to get it done and have a new start eventually than to hold on to these toxic debt year after year and it keep stressing you out emotionally, mentally, and also physically. Alright, so let's move on. Now, before you do, a quick reminder that I have a private Facebook group with 2,500 members in there. So if you're someone that's interested in getting more knowledge and information and ask questions, make sure you click the link in my description below to join my group. Now, let's go to the last part, which is about growing money. So generally, here are some tips that I want everyone to keep in mind. Number one is something called Rule of 72, which is my first video on this channel. So if you haven't already, you can watch it right here. But it's basically talking about how a small difference in percentage return every year can have drastic difference when you compound them in the long run. Now, for me and my clients, the top two priority we always keep in mind to really grow our wealth to a substantial amount is number one is look for consistent positive return over volatile big returns. So a consistent 6 to 10% return every year positively is probably going to outdo someone that's chasing for a 200% in 1 year, because that also means you can take huge losses. And sometimes when that huge loss happens later down the road, when you have accumulated a massive amount, can really make a difference between you can retire today or not. And number two is to prioritize your tax efficiency. Now, this sounds very simple, but it's something that over and over again I've seen people not focus enough on, and this is something you really want to think about. Make sure you maximize your RSP and TFSA before you do non-registered investments. Now, on the topic of should I do RSP or TFSA, that's completely dependent on your situation and your income and your future income projection and your need for the money in the future. So this is something I can't answer directly for you, but generally speaking, if you're expecting to maybe make a lot more income in the future and you're really unsure about RSP, then at least do a TFSA first, because you can at least withdraw your TFSA in the future and put it into your RSP. Now, more often than not, I've actually run into clients where they have very good discipline, so they save a lot of money every year and they're able to maximize their TFSA and RSP every year, and they still have a large chunk of leftover to be invested. And because they're high income or they have rental properties, they're already at a very high bracket. So they might need to consider more unique solution, for example, using insurance as a tax sheltered investment vehicle to further invest their leftover money, just so they don't have to pay so much tax every year and hurt their return. So if you're someone in that situation, make sure you're fully aware of all the options available to you, so you're not just investing in a non-registered and paying taxes on all your gains, which hurts your long-term retirement plan for sure. Now, the next tip I'll give you, which is something I use for myself and my clients, is identify each account with goals and the time horizon. So definitely not all your accounts is going to be for retirement. Some will be for much short-term use, maybe buying a house. You need to be very aware which money is doing what and to identify the time horizon you need to potentially withdraw that money. And in general, if it's something that you won't need to use in 3 to 5 years or more, the next tip would be to stay invested no matter what happens to the market. And the reason why is, if you look on the screen, this is a chart posted by Jacky which talks about the best invested days. If you stay invested, what would your return be? And what happens if you try to pull money out and put it in and then you missed a certain amount of best trading days? So as you can see, just missing 10 best trading days or 20 best trading days can have huge effect on your overall performance. And this is something I see a lot when it comes to newer investor is sometimes they might be able to make a good buy-in. For example, when market crash in March, you buy in, you make money, and then immediately you pull all the money out and you were sitting as cash for the next 5 to 6 months because you were afraid the market would drop again. But looking in the history, generally over the 3 to 5 years, there is rarely a period of time that you would actually be at a huge loss if you stay invested. Generally, you will still come out ahead. So you can do some changes inside to change your allocation to fit the current situation, but you should stay invested because you really don't want to miss all those good trading days. Now, if you're someone who's skittish about the market, you're really uncomfortable, then you can at least do dollar cost averaging. Dollar cost averaging can help remove a lot of the fear because it's systematic investing every so often, and that can be very good for people who don't want to always pay attention to the market or they're very nervous about the market. Now, to wrap up this video, so far every tips I give you is not something completely new or groundbreaking. You probably have heard of it all before, or you have found something new today that you learned. No matter which person you are, the most important thing is to put some of these ideas into action and actually apply them. Because if you hear and you learn so much and you don't do something about it, at the end of the day, it's just going to be a waste of time for you, and I'd much rather you use this time to spend with your family. So for 2021, if you want to further improve your finance, you should focus on putting at least one good idea you have in your mind into action. So by the end of 2021, you're going to look back and have a fruitful and wonderful year, and you're much better off financially. Alright guys, that's all I want to say today. If you like my video, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell button so you get all the notifications in the future. This is Jacky. I hope you found this interesting. Happy New Year. I'll see you next week. Bye.